Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Joe here live on a Thursday. Week of NFL football is back tonight. We've got
what
do we got? Pittsburgh, Cleveland.
Yeah, yum.
Woo!
It's a pretty rough Monday night game as well. So
yeah, a little Giants Cowboys
versus Cooper Rush.
Yum.
Pretty rough. So Sunday might be the only day to watch football this week. I mean, okay, let's be honest, it's still football.
So if this weekend is described as a sub shop, you'd want a breadless sandwich. Is that what you're saying? All about the meat in the middle of it.
I like that. An unwich.
An unwich, yes, that's the word I was looking for.
JJ's unwich.
All right, Joe.
Not a sponsor.
We're gonna get a little deep here with our question of the day today. I want to know, would you rather go back in time to meet your ancestors or the future to meet your descendants?
I'd rather go up in the future, meet my descendants. See, how my unborn children actually, how their lives end up turning up, or how, their unborn grandchildren end up turning out would be, I think, much more satisfying than seeing how, my ancestors had to, I guess, see, that doesn't interest. History is kind of cool, but like, I don't know. I think, I've got nothing to do. I would have nothing to do with my ancestors in terms of like, I don't have any impact on them. I would have an impact on, future children, future grandchildren, and their future children as well. So I'd much rather see if I was a positive or negative influence on my kids, grandkids in the future, rather than, I mean, like I said, it'd be fun to go back in time, but I don't exactly want to, end up in the 18th century where I'm sitting here hunting for my dinner every night either. So I like the grocery store.
Yep. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I would be more interested to go back in time if it wasn't necessarily meeting my ancestors, but just like from a history aspect, just to see like, wow, okay, I'm like super spoiled today with all the things that you don't even think about. But at the same time, it'd be cool to go into the future too, to see what's there, or maybe you go into the future and it's just nothing. There's just nothing.
Well, that's I guess how far ahead do we want to go? Because the way that this world is starting to heat up, we might not be able to go too far in the future.
Right. But I think it'd be way cooler to see the impact that you have on future generations, as opposed to, like you said, past. It'd be cool to like go back and see, but you can't change anything, and it didn't have any impact really. You didn't impact it at all. So.
You could kind of, I guess, learn how maybe the past had an impact on you, though. Genetically, or with your habits, or with your your values, your skill sets, your maybe I end up discovering that I have a skill that I didn't even know about, because 2-3 generations ago they did, and it ended up kind of maybe not the skill getting passed down, but maybe some people just have a knack for a certain talent that they didn't even know about. So maybe if you went back 2-3 generations, be like, holy shit, my great grandfather was an amazing harp player, whatever, a harpist. I don't know if that's the right word. And then I end up being a great player of the harp if I just give it a shot. Like that's what I mean, which you didn't even know that was somewhere in your blood.
Now, if you could bring an object with you, I think I would definitely go back and pull a little Back to the Future too. Bring that sports almanac to my on some nice bets, and then I'd be rolling in some dough when I got back to my present self. But that's a totally different topic.
That would be nice.
Yes.
Or just bring a computer, or bring back a little bit of cash and put money on the right stocks.
Yes.
Move back to the future. Huh? Hey, look at that.
Right. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell on our YouTube page. That can be found typing in Dead Arm Sports into the search bar. You'll see our nice black and yellow logo. Black and yellow, black and yellow.
Wow.
We are live there every Tuesday. Got the chat box monitored. You can ask us questions while we're live, and we will go ahead and answer your questions. Jell can be found at DasJell. That's at DasJel. It can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DasJPEC. Can send us any DMs, questions there. Make sure you follow both of us. Jell will get out his nice betting favorites and games he's throwing some quiche on over the weekend. So make sure you check that out. Hopefully,
aiming to go a little bit better than 0-3 on my college picks at least.
Well, we'll get into
a strong NFL start, but I got some work to do on college.
I was going to say, I kind of yelled at you via text on Saturday. And if you would have went with my upset pick of the week, the Kansas Jayhawks might have won some cash.
Rock chalk, baby. That would have been a nice W if I had that money line. That'd have been a sweet chunk of change. But hey, congrats, man. Got the first one. And I don't know, man, that Jayhawk team that offense, at least, it's legit.
Yeah,
it's legit.
Going up against 3-0 Duke this week, so we'll see how that plays out. Let's jump right into that.
Are on fire, baby.
College slate, Jell. Got week 4 of the season upon us. Got a few ranked games starting off a lot of the conference schedule. Finally, cupcake season's behind us and get into the old meat and potatoes.
Until the SEC teams start to play their
week before their rivalry games. But yeah, we'll get into that a little later on and probably talk some trash that week. Week before Thanksgiving, we can have maybe a shit list that week and put these teams on blast. But what are some of these good games that you're actually looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, ACC matchup, Clemson at Wake Forest. I'd mentioned in the previous episode that, Clemson is right now a top 5 team. They're at number 5 in the AP rankings, but I don't know if that necessarily means they're playing like a top 5 team. Wake Forest finished last season as a top 15 team. Right now, they're in the top 25. Game at Wake Forest. DJ Ukulele, man, he better be like on his A game big time, because Dabo has said that, this isn't even a competition. This is not DJ Uiagalelei's job to lose. It's not a competition, but you know how it can go. If DJ, who hasn't really, again, top prospect in his recruiting, or top recruit in his class, not just for QBs, for all positions. But he has not looked the part. Obviously, Clemson had a down year last season, and they haven't been all that impressive this year. Wake Forest off to a nice 3-0 start. Not the toughest competition with a VMI. I don't know who that is. Maybe Vermont in International or something.
Oh, look.
VMI week 1, Vanderbilt week 2, Liberty week 3. And, they're off to a 3-0 start. Again, it's limited competition, but this is a big time ACC game. And again, Uiagalelei hasn't been all that impressive. So if DJ struggles this week, you might be looking at Cade Klubnik coming in and starting in the second half. When Clemson was up comfortably against Florida State earlier in the season, Klubnik did come in that, for the final couple drives, and I thought he looked awesome. I mean, the ball was coming out crisp. It was coming out on time. It was, he led a drive down the field that was incredibly impressive. He's extremely mobile. And DJ, I think if DJ gets off to a rough start here, they may make a change at halftime, and that would be the changing of the guard within that QB room. And it would, from there on, again, it'd be kind of like the Kelly Bryant team where Kelly Bryant started the first couple of games for Clemson, and then Trevor Lawrence comes in, and it was Lawrence's show for the rest of the season, for the rest of his career until he left for the NFL. So I think if DJ struggles in the first half this year, we might be seeing that transition over to Cade Klubnik, and then at that point it's Klubnik's job for the rest of the season, potentially till he ends up leaving for the NFL. Also kind of would then remind me of the Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams deal at Oklahoma last year, where Spencer Rattler, again, big time prospect, talks about him being the number 1 overall pick. He struggles. Caleb Williams comes in, and it's the Caleb Williams show for the Sooners for, well, I guess just the rest of that season before he transferred to SC. But Spencer Rattler then transferred. You'd be looking at Uyunglele probably transferring at the end of this season if he loses his job. I just think it's very, very possible that could happen this week, given that Wake Forest is a legitimate team. I mean, in the past, Wake Forest has been a bit of a slouch when it comes to football, but these last few years, they've been a respectable program. Again, last year finishing at in the top 15, right now a top 25 team off to a 3-0 start. So I think DJ's got to be looking out for his job at this point.
Fun fact, VMI is the Virginia Military Institute. So that was our fun fact of the day.
Solid 44-10 win. Thank you for your service.
No, you took one of mine that I had written down. It's a good thing I put another one in there. But no, this is one I'm looking forward to. It's been highlighted on my schedule for quite some time. I want to see Clemson, a tough road test with Wake Forest. And I want to jump over to the other side of the matchup. You had mentioned DJ Ukulele and needing to get off to a hot start. And I agree with everything that you said. This has a lot of shades of Oklahoma quarterback situation last year, where playoff aspirations from Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler is supposed to be phenomenal, coming off of a pretty decent season the year before that, and just did not look good. They were down big in that Red River shootout, and Caleb Williams comes in, sparks them to a victory, and the rest is history from there. Spencer Rattler transferring out to South Carolina hasn't looked great to start off this season, but you wonder, DJ needs to get this switched around because, like you said, Cade Klubnik, one of the top quarterback recruits from this 2022 class, is right on his heels. And Clemson's not satisfied with the season like they had last year, where they won 10-3, and they want to get into that college football playoff. That's what they're there for. That's what everybody that comes into Clemson right now, with the way that program's built, is gunning for. And they're not satisfied with losing games, especially in conference. They're wanting to be beating all of these teams. So I'm very curious to see what ends up happening with this one. But again, Sam Hartman, I'm curious to see what he looks like going up against this Clemson defense. Clemson defense has shown at times so far this season they are susceptible to having the other team put up points on the board. Wake Forest has been putting up a ton of points right now. They put up 40-some points in their last 2 games, and I believe put up 40 points as well in their opening game. Sam Hartman, of course, was out with that one due to that undisclosed medical incident that he had, but he's looked good the last 2 games. So I'm very curious to see if Wake Forest can pull off the upset against Clemson, see those students storm in the field.
Demon Deacons. What the hell is a Demon Deacon anyways? What is that?
It looks like an old 1800s person in a top hat with a monocle. Is that the eyepiece?
It looks like an old dude. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. It's creepy, but yep. All right, my game, I'll shift over to the Big Ten, and it's one that we talked a little bit about on Tuesday, and I'm very curious on this Maryland-Michigan game. Maryland has looked okay to start off the season. Again, Tua's younger brother, is it Talia? Tungavailoa, but either way, he's been off to a pretty hot start right now, and I'm curious to see what it looks like. We talked about Michigan's really weak schedule to start off the season. They've been on an absolute tear, but I'm curious to see what they look like now that they get into conference play. And Maryland's a team that could make a little bit of noise, pull off an upset here and there. I don't know if it's going to be at the big house this week against a tough Michigan offense and pretty good defense, but I'm curious to see. This will tell us quite a bit, I think, about Michigan and when they're actually playing a little bit tougher of a game and inside the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of briefly touched on it a little bit last week, and it's been Michigan hasn't played anybody yet. So, they're getting a legitimate test in a 3-0 Maryland team who they've been putting up points 31 in week 1, 56 in week 2, 34 last week. So that's a legitimate offense so we're going to have to see if, how that Michigan defense is going to be able to hang with that offense. And if that offense, or if that Michigan defense does struggle and Maryland is able to put up significant points, can that Michigan offense match, or I guess outduel, do you see a possibility of Michigan winning this game in a shootout? Do you think Michigan has the horses to be able to do so?
Yeah, I think so. They've been putting up a ton of points. I can't remember his first name, but Corum, the running backs, had a phenomenal start to the season.
He's been legit.
Yeah, so I think they have enough, and especially with the home atmosphere, Big House is going to be packed. First Big Ten game of the season for them, but I think Maryland can put up points, but ultimately, if it is a shootout and Michigan's on their A game, they can definitely win in a shootout. I don't foresee any issues with that. Yeah. I do think they end up coming away with the win this weekend.
Yeah, Wolverines haven't struggled to put up any points, but again, it's been against garbage competition. So.
Colorado State, Hawaii, and yes, UConn does have a football team.
Too good. I'm going to go to a battle of two teams that have been genuinely disappointing this season, and that's going to be Notre Dame at UNC. Okay. Notre Dame starting up, finally getting their first win of the year with a very strong 24-17 win over the Cal Bears. Wah, 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 wah. Pretty rough there. 7 points against Cal. Yikes. After losing to Marshall and Ohio State. And then UNC, they are 3-0, but they only beat Appalachian State by 2, and they only beat Georgia State by 7. So I think, and then, Florida A&M week 0, I don't really count that. So but they are 3-0. I guess it'll be interesting to see, Notre Dame should be able to just walk away with an easy W here this week, but nothing has come easy for that team so far. And UNC, again, just extremely disappointing with these two close wins against Appalachian State and Georgia State. Those should be games where they're walking away with easy W's. So I think just, even though they're 3-0, disappointing, obviously Notre Dame getting their first win, a 7-point win over Cal, really disappointing, but a game at UNC, Notre Dame, really, they're, finally getting into the ACC. Do you see this being a struggle for Notre Dame?
Yeah.
It has to be. Everything has to be.
It has to be. Yeah. I mean, they have not looked good at all to start off the season. Lost to Ohio State, like you said, lost to a Marshall team, and then had a struggle last week and barely pulled out a win at home this last week. So, no, I think it's going to be a tough game. I mean, North Carolina has looked they've looked okay to start off the season. Like you mentioned, they've got a lot of talent on that roster. Was it Marion Hampton, running back? He's off to a solid start for them. But no, I think the bigger story with it is Notre Dame just hasn't looked good so far. And what I'm more curious too, what do you think of Marcus Freeman's job security if they were to start off the season 1-3 right now? I mean,
they are right now 1.5 point. They are 1.5 point dogs. Notre Dame is. So,
but this is not the start that Notre Dame fans expected from them. I mean, they're a team the last couple of years that has been a borderline college football playoff team. And to start off 1-3, where now you're not even going to be getting a New Year's Six bowl game. that's
against
not a good
so
start
far
to his coaching
not
career
good
there.
competition. I mean, we've seen interim, he's not technically an interim coach. I guess he was for the final bowl game last year, but he was given the full-time head coaching job. And we've seen in the past that these guys that are, they bring in from within the program just can't cut it as a head coach. So I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if at the end of year one, Marcus Freeman's out. We've talked about some of the other names that are out there. Mark Stoops, Luke Fickell, that dude from Kansas. I feel bad that
Leipold.
Yeah, Lance. Yep, there it is. Those are three of the bigger names that are gonna be out there, and I think Mark Stoops might be the one that they could absolutely go after. Notre Dame's, they're a much bigger brand than the University of Kentucky is, at least football wise. If he starts out 1-3, I bet I could see him make it just, getting through the season, unless they wanted to cut bait halfway through and give the rest of the season to Tommy Rees. But I think this might be a one and done type of thing for Marcus Freeman if this continues, because this has been rough.
Yeah, no, like you mentioned, there's a ton of names out there that I think Notre Dame could potentially jump on to come in and fill that coaching void. And it makes you wonder, another name that's sitting out there, Urban Meyer. He's wanted to go to Notre Dame to coach there. And I don't know if they would with all of the antics that you had in the NFL last year, but that could be interesting.
I mean, Urban's got such a track record. How many players when he was at Florida that got arrested?
Yeah.
Aaron Hernandez. I mean, do we have to really elaborate on that? He was on that team. And then Ohio State, there were recruiting things there of a couple players getting arrested there. He's never run really a super clean program. Yes, he's ran winning programs, national title programs. But I think Notre Dame has, their ethical standard is a little too high for them to justify bringing Urban Meyer. As much of a fit football wise as it would be, I don't know. That's I think too far of a leap for even Notre Dame to take right now.
Yeah, they're shouting his name in Nebraska last week on the Fox Big Noon Kickoff pregame show, but yeah,
as they should be. Yes. I mean, hell, he's done wonders with every program that he's been at. So, but I don't even know if he could take care of Nebraska and make them relevant again. They're just in such, they're in the pits right now.
Yeah. Speaking of kickoff shows, I'm going to move to the site of College Game Day this week and head over to Knoxville, Tennessee for the Florida-Tennessee matchup. I don't think we'd be doing ourselves a service here if we didn't include this game in our games we're excited for this week. But got two ranked teams, Florida coming off of back-to-back tough games. I mean, lost to Kentucky was ugly. And then again, we had mentioned on Tuesday, barely beaten South Florida, but they could come in and right the ship here with a solid road win at Tennessee. Tennessee's 3-0 to start off of the season. And yeah, just curious to see if Anthony Richardson, what he ends up doing in this one, and if Hendon Hooker can keep up that stretch. If Tennessee comes in and wins pretty handily here, this could be a nice springboard to them, give them some momentum coming up for some of their other conference games. You mentioned Bama's coming up in the next couple of weeks, so that'll be a big game for them. So just curious to see. Cedric Tillman was hurt last week, had a nice shot to his knee that he took from a defender. So he's day-to-day their top receiver on the season so far. So we'll see if he's able to play, something to keep an eye on, but always a fun atmosphere in Tennessee for a game. I know obviously the fans are going to be out in full force for game day in the morning. So loving some of the signs we've been seeing so far. It's so much fun just to wake up in the morning, grab that cup of coffee on the way to the couch and turn on game day. So looking forward to this one.
Just feels good to have, like you said, first thing, just in the morning. Yep. Click it on. I got my boys at ESPN that I've been watching every Saturday morning during the fall and the winter for the last however long I've had cable, I guess. Yeah, I guess
I guess too, speaking of game day here, quick side note, how did you like Kirky on Thursday Night Football?
I mean, he was who I know, which is just, just fine. I thought, I didn't really hear much in terms of hiccups from them. Amazon, there were a few hiccups in terms of
streaming was
the actual streaming
picture.
Yeah, exactly. That was that. And that apparently did not just hit me. So that hit
commercials
everybody.
were crystal clear. Shocker.
Amazing how that works. But, other than that, I thought he did a fine job. I think Al Michaels called Josh Reynolds Josh Phillips once or something. So one hiccup from Al Michaels that I know of, but Kirk seemed to do fine. He always comes in prepared. He's used to announcing college where he's got to prepare for two teams that have like 100 players and 10 assistant coaches and, ADs and all that he preps for. So I'm sure doing the NFL is a breeze. I guess just going back to the Florida-Tennessee matchup, I'm honestly more interested in how they're going to react over really having two extremely unimpressive weeks with their loss to Kentucky and eking out a win against South Florida last week. So I'm more interested in that and kind of seeing if they go back to their offensive game plan in week one and letting Anthony Richardson run again. We mentioned this on the Tuesday show that Richardson only has 28 rush yards over the last two games, and those are the games where the offense has struggled. So definitely that's what I'm more curious about in this game is if Florida is going to go back to the offense that they were and let Anthony Richardson do his thing, because when he is able to use his legs, that's when he's one of the more dangerous players in the NCAA. So we'll see if they can rebound there. I mean, Tennessee has to have the edge at this point, but if they can get that offense running through Richardson, let him be the dual threat guy that he is, I think they'll have a chance. But it's going to come down to what would Billy Napier do, and if it's what he would do in week one, they got a shot. I'm going to go out west here to Oregon at Washington State. Oregon coming off this massive win, dominating performance against BYU with a 41-20 victory against BYU. Washington State, their last game was the win at Camp Randall. They had a bye this past week. So Oregon, huge win, very possible, I think, for a little bit of a letdown going into this game. And along with the fact that Washington State had a bye, they're coming off a win, had a bye week, so they've had an extra week to rest and prep for this game. I think this is going to be a little bit tighter than of a game than we think it might be. Just if you read off the names, Oregon, Washington State, years past, you might have thought, yeah, this is going to be a blowout. Oregon's going to, win this game 48-8, or that's be a kind of an odd score, but you know what I mean? Yep. I mean, so
safety and 2 field goals. I was familiar with that.
But I think that this might be a little bit closer of a game than the initial names that I mentioned kind of suggest that it could be. And the rankings of number 15 Oregon versus unranked Washington State.
No, I love that. I love that call with that game. I'm excited for it as well. Like you had mentioned, Oregon coming off of a solid home victory over BYU. You wonder if what they're looking like coming off of that emotional win. And like you said, Washington State, they've looked pretty good. I saw them firsthand at the Wisconsin game the other weekend. Granted, Cam Ward didn't have to do a ton in that one. Washington State did not dominate the time of possession, but came away with that victory and didn't really see their offense in full force, but he's been off to a solid start this season. So I'm looking forward to the Cam Ward versus Bo Nix starts there, get some quarterback action going on there, and should be a fun Pac-12 game. That's for sure.
No doubt, Ski.
I'm going to stick in the Pac-12 as well. I thought you stole mine at first, but I am going with USC at Oregon State. We had talked about that a little bit over the weekend. USC's been off to a hot start, 3-0. Jordan Addison having a bomb season. Caleb Williams, of course, Mario Williams. So that offense has been firing, but they have, like you had mentioned, been susceptible on defense. And Oregon State is quietly 3-0 right now, very under the radar. And this could be a weekend that a lot of college football fans that don't follow the Pac-12 get to know the Oregon State Beavers a little bit here. Chance Nolan, 746 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks on the season. And the Oregon State offense has put up 34 points, 35, 68 this last week. Granted, that was Montana State, but the other 2 games, Boise State, which, I mean, they're not the powerhouse that they used to be, but respectable, and Fresno State. So Fresno State's been pretty solid. That was with Hayner in the game before he got hurt this last week. But this is one that I was super mad, have been watching all day today, 6.5 point spread. And this would have been my upset of the week had it been 7 points, but
yeah, Oregon, Washington State is also at 6.5. So okay. 2 Pac-12 games that were right on the cusp.
Yep. So this is one that I think Oregon State's going to end up shocking USC here. Corvallis is going to be rocking this week for the home game, and I think Oregon State, the Beavs, are going to end up knocking off the Trojans.
Hardly know her, Beavers. All right. Well, I'm going to go in the Big 12 or Pac-12 as well. Gonna go with a little bit longer of a shot though here. I got Stanford over Washington plus 14.
Okay.
Going for a 2-pointer this week. Stanford hung in there, especially in the second half against USC. Again, winning that second half against USC 14-6. Washington is coming off of a big game, a nice win against Michigan State, but their previous 2 games against Kent State and Portland State. Portland is not a state, by the way. So that's a little confusing. But no, I mean, I think 14 points is way too much, especially with the way that Stanford really hung in there last week against the Trojans. Tanner McGee
2 weeks ago. They're on bye last week.
Oh, your last game, my fault.
Yep.
Tanner McGee is legit. I mean, he's a potential NFL. He's absolutely an NFL prospect. Not saying he's a first round prospect, but he will be drafted. And a lot of times it's those veteran NFL type quarterbacks that can lead to, can kind of help lead some of these upsets. So I'm liking Stanford over Washington here plus 14, and looking forward to taking that lead over you after you took the 1-0 lead over me this past week. So this is a 2-pointer. Let's go.
My Kansas Jayhawks did win last week, so I am in the lead with the 1-0 victory here. Stanford, I do like that one a lot. Like you mentioned, Tanner McGee's been off to a hot start. They're coming off of the bye, so they've had 2 weeks to prepare for Washington. Like you mentioned, Washington again had the nice upset win over Michigan State this last weekend. So you wonder what they're going to look like. EJ Smith has been solid for Stanford as well. As long as he holds on to the football, he's got 3 fumbles, I think, on the season so far, but he's been off to a nice start though, as far as yards per carry and touchdowns. But that definitely is one that I like. My upset of the week this week, since I could not pick the Oregon State Beavers, I am going to go back to the Clemson-Wake Forest matchup and take Wake Forest here. They're 7-point dogs right now, so going for the 1 point. I don't know. I think that, like we had touched on the earlier segment here, I think DJ is going to struggle, and the season is going to be very reminiscent of the Oklahoma season last year with the 2 quarterbacks there. So I think DJ is going to struggle a little bit here, leave the door open, and Sam Hartman's going to lead a nice victory for Wake Forest. So that's who I am rolling with this week.
I like it.
All right. Well, you got you got Josh, and we're going to play a little game here, a little fantasy football NFL action, the return of Jellin or Joshin. So how this segment works, Jell and I are each going to make a statement, and the other person is going to say if they're gelling, they're feeling that statement, they agree with it, or if they think the person's just joshing around and do not agree with them. So
what a great name for a segment. Like, how perfect is this?
It is. It is. All right, I'll kick this one off, Jill. You kicked off the NCAA, so my my fantasy statement here: Jellin or Joshin. Carson Wentz is back and capable of being a quarterback one in your lineup.
How long are we saying he's a QB1 through the end of the season, or are we
For the
talking about
season, at
just
the
this
end of the
week?
season, 12-team leagues, he will finish within the top 12 at the quarterback position. Off 650 yards through 2 games, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. So kind of rejuvenated a little bit, getting the new landing spot. Got some nice weapons too. I mean, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson's off to a hot start. Rick's boy,
Jahan Dotson looks the part, man. He looks great.
Rick's boy, Curtis Samuels,
and Critter's boy,
so
both
far.
of them,
Critter,
both the other co-hosts.
The co-hosts. He hasn't gotten hurt yet, so that's fine. Logan Thomas has made a little noise so far, so he's got some offensive weapons there. Got the Giants, Cowboys, Eagles in that division, but yeah, Jellin or Joshin, Carson Wentz finishes top 12 QB1.
Okay, this is going to be I guess a two-parter here for me. I'm gelling with he finishes as a top 12 quarterback because he's been off to such a ridiculously awesome start. However, I am joshing with, I guess, thinking that from here on out, he is a top 12 quarterback. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I think he does. I think he has a very good chance to finish top 10 or, top 10, top 12 because of this hot start. But can I see that continuing? Doubtful. Not because of the weapons, but I just, think of these two teams that he's faced so far have been the Jags and the Lions, the two teams that had the number 1 and number 2 overall picks last year. So those defenses are, while improved, still not great. So that's why I got to go Joshin with him finishing, from here on out as a QB1.
Yeah, I'm gelling on it. I just think the way Washington's defense isn't as good as they have been in the past either. So I think he's going to be forced later on in the games to keep throwing the ball. They're not going to ever have substantial leads or they're just trying to run out the clock. So I think just with those weapons that he has, that he's going to end up making enough noise and putting up enough touchdowns and yards that he'll be able to sneak into that top 12 at the end of the year.
We'll see. I mean,
we'll see.
I think, again, borderline for me.
Oh, yeah. No, it'd be 11 or 12 is what he finishes at. It's not anything. Yeah. Not going out and saying top 5.
That would be something.
Yeah.
Okay. Sticking with the quarterback position. Right now, Stafford, Brady, and Rodgers rank in just standard scoring as QB 20, Stafford as QB 20, Rodgers as QB 28, Brady as QB 29. Jellin or Joshin, that all three of these guys end up finishing the season as top 20 quarterbacks.
I'm gelling. I think they're just off to slow starts right now. Tampa Bay, their receivers can't stay healthy. I haven't seen Chris Godwin really on the field. He re-aggravated that injury. Julio Jones has been hurt. Mike Evans is, as of right now, suspended for this week. So you're without him. So I think that has been a huge factor for Tom Brady. Leonard Fournette has looked okay on the ground, hasn't found the end zone yet, but he's been fine. So they've been trying to get the run game going, and their defense has been good where they haven't really been forced to get into those shootout games. But yeah, I mean, top 20 Packers, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. We saw that with the Bears game this last week, that Rodgers really didn't throw the ball unless he had to. They tried to get the run game going, which I think if they're going to make the playoffs and make a run, that's what you need to do. Rodgers needs to take a back seat in the offense, get the ball to the workhorses, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, and just pass when he needs to. It'll be a little bit of a struggle for him, I think, at times, but I think ultimately he'll end up sneaking his way into there. And then Stafford, just having Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson looked like he was back this last week, had a touchdown taken away from a very strange play on the field where somebody from up
Yeah.
above called the game and called the timeout because it looked like somebody had gotten a concussion or something. And yeah, it was really weird, but that took a touchdown off the board from Robinson there.
Oh,
So
they counted it. I got the notification that he got a touchdown.
They counted it and then they took it away.
And then they took it away. Gotta love that. Thanks a lot.
Yep. But no, there's too many quarterbacks that are in that bottom 12 that there's no way that these three guys finish in the bottom 12. They'll sneak into the top 20.
I'm gonna say I'm joshing it on all three of them will finish in the top 20. And I think Rodgers is the odd man out. I just don't see, we've seen the formula that they're going with at least through the first 2 weeks. And that's the AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones show. Rodgers just doesn't have any rapport with those rookie receivers. I think it gets better, but he's so far down already to start the season, down at 28, that, and the fact that there is no Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams to save the day and to improve those numbers. Right now, his main guys are those running backs and Sammy Watkins. Like and we know Sammy Watkins ain't making it through the season. Yeah. So that's the only reason that I'm joshing it is, and I think Stafford and Brady get going. I mean, Brady, there's no way he finishes this season he's right now at 29. Obviously that's going to turn around. He was awesome last year. I believe finished as a top 5 in standard scoring amongst QBs. I might be wrong about that, I guess, but he was very impressive last year. And Stafford, yeah, like you said, Cooper Kupp, that's what's going to make it for him. But Rodgers is the one that I think that's the one I'm going to single out that finishes outside the top 20.
All right, Jellin or Joshin? If you have Najee Harris in redraft, trade him now.
I'm Jellin with that. I mean, I think your value is kind of shitty, just the way that he's performed these first 2 weeks. But I don't know how much better it's going to get for him. That offensive line is still terrible. They're in a division with some pretty stout defenses. It's no bang. I'm not banging on Najee. I just think that offensive line is it's not going to get it done this season. And maybe there's going to be some people out there in your league that are going to say, oh, Najee Harris, big name. He was awesome last year. I just don't think that offensive line is going to be able to, he had over 400 touches last year, or approached 400 touches last year. Maybe some wear and tear on that, plus the lack of a decent offensive line. I think it's going to leave any Najee Harris owner as feeling disappointed. So I'd be fine cutting ties already with him.
Yeah, somebody who has him in Dynasty, I am disappointed so far. But again, in Dynasty, he's a hold. But redraft, I'm with you too. I'm gelling on that statement. He's averaging 2.9 yards a carry right now, 25 carries, 72 yards, no touchdowns.
That's bad.
The bigger factor this year is he had those games at times last year where he was only averaging 3 yards a carry. But Big Ben was checking down to him a lot in the passing game, but we're not seeing that from Trubisky at all. I don't know once Kenny Pickett gets in there if that will change it all, but if he's not getting targets at all in the passing game, he's not going to finish as an RB1 this season with how that line is. And I would, if you can get value for him right now, maybe you wait, maybe he's got a good game coming up. Cleveland's been a little susceptible to putting up big games so far for opposing.
Breece Hall got his first score this past week.
Yep. So maybe
on a nice busted run defense that went for a nice gain.
Yeah. So maybe you hold for tonight's game, see if he has a big game, and then maybe try and trade him. But I think for redraft, if you can get some value, get a nice haul back, I'm totally good with that.
Speaking of running backs off to disappointing starts, Devin Singletary right now ranks as your league-wide RB 47.
Oof.
Yeah. Joshin or Jellin, he stays there and finishes outside of an RB2.
Ooh.
And if you want to take it another step outside of like a top flex option, which would then take you to RB36 type of territory.
Yeah, I think he would stay in a flex option, but I think I'm gelling with that. Their offense right now has been through Josh Allen passing the ball. It's the weirdest thing with that Buffalo offense because every postseason you start seeing Devin Singletary getting handoffs and you have that rejuvenated hope for the next season that, all right, maybe they're actually going to see that he's a good running back, gets a lot of yards per carry, makes an impact in that rushing attack. And then they completely abandon it and go back to what they've been doing the past few regular seasons. And Josh Allen has looked so far. The receiving core has been firing on all cylinders. That was even without Gabe Davis in the game last night where he was hurt. And no, I'm gelling with that I think Devin Singletary is somebody that you have high hopes for him, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. It hasn't happened to this point during the regular season, and I don't think it will.
Yeah, the final 3 of the 4 final weeks of the season last year, I mean, he was awesome, putting up, really good yardage numbers, scoring touchdowns. And then in the postseason, like you said, his last 4 games, he scored 5 touchdowns. And then that's in the regular season. And then in the postseason, he was being used all the time. But it's like, for some reason, in the beginning of every season, I'm looking at his numbers from last year. Good God. Like 26 yards. This is 26, 25, 27, 28, 16, 43, 17, 44, 36. That's how many yards on the ground he was having in some of these games, weeks 1 through say week 10. They started ramping him up a little bit in December and he started having some nice games. So I think he ends up finishing outside of an RB2. So I guess I'm gelling with that. I struggle though to keep him even as a flex 1 option right now. If you're in a 2 flex league, you're gonna play him, but maybe you hang on to him if it is a 1 flex. You just hang on to him if it's a 1 flex league, and hopefully he pops at the end of the season as he has the past 2 years.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, this offense is 100% running through Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis had a really nice week 1. We've seen Isaiah McKenzie getting involved really all over the field in weeks 1 and 2. So I think right now it's a Josh Allen offense 100%, and you just hang on to Singletary, but I'm never going to be excited about putting him in even as my flex, my top flex.
All right, my last one for you, Jell. Everyone was trying to call their shot on one of these guys at the beginning of the season. There's coin flip between a lot of these guys, and I'm telling you right now that Jellin or Joshin, it is safe to drop all Chiefs wide receivers in any format.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we definitely said, and we knew this, that it was going to be a receiver by committee type of thing with Kelsey. Clyde's been awesome. And I don't know. I say maybe stash, but if you've got a short bench,
I'll do this. I'll list off the 3 main wide receivers in their offense. You tell me if you're Jellin or Josh and if you can cut them. So Jellin is you're fine holding them right now, or Joshin's a cut. Mecole Hardman, Joshin,
yeah.
MVS hasn't done jack shit so far. You're Joshin. Juju Smith-Schuster, who
that's the one
is a 1-year contract right now, he's their leading receiver right now, but I believe is in the 80-yard range over 2 games with the Chiefs putting up quite a bit of points.
That's the one that I would hang on to. Okay. Of the 3, again, not loving it, but what do you do? I mean, what do you think about Sky Moore? Is he worth even rostering to see if maybe later on in the season he goes, he gets more involved.
Yeah, I think Sky Moore might be the one
He's the
I would
upside
hold on
play
to
of those
the
four.
four, just because maybe he's someone that has similar like Amon-Ra St. Brown, or Amon-Ra St. Brown really didn't do a whole lot at the beginning of last season and then came on really strong at the end of the season, won a lot of people their fantasy playoffs. Or maybe you hope for a similar thing with Sky Moore, gets to know the offense a little bit better, gets a more rapport with Patrick Mahomes, and takes that step forward to be one of his favorite targets outside of Travis Kelce. But right now, I mean, you can't start any of these guys. I mean, it's literally just Clyde Edwards and Travis Kelce outside of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, there's nobody else worth starting, because
For
Patrick
sure.
Mahomes is finally spreading the ball around instead of the safety blanket of Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill that we've seen in the last few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not starting any of them for sure, but I don't know. I don't know. It's so tough. I mean, we're only 2 weeks in, and maybe he ends up finding that preferred number one receiver, but it's hard to say which one. And based on the past of Hardman and MVS, they're out. Juju's the one that maybe has a chance to stick around. Sky Moore is probably somebody that, if I had built my team with the plan on stashing him until maybe hoping later on in the season he pops, I'm going to stick with that plan. But I don't think you just go drop all of them at this point. All right, final question on my side, sticking with the wide receivers. Right now, Elijah Moore is the wide receiver 56. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 12 in the league. Very nice this past week from Garrett Wilson, getting 2 scores. Do you think that, however, by season's end, Elijah Moore overtakes Garrett Wilson as the top point scorer in that Jets receiver room? Jellin or Joshin?
I'm joshing on it. I think Garrett Wilson's going to be the one that ends up being that top wide receiver there. We saw 14 targets this last week. I mean, Joe Flacco was zoned in on him. Garrett Wilson had a fantastic ball game. Elijah Moore is still out there running around, so he's going to have his games, but I think consistency wise over the entire season, Garrett Wilson's going to be your more consistent option there and get you to that wide receiver 1 spot on that Jets offense. I think you're just going to get too many boom bust games from Elijah Moore down the stretch. Granted, we haven't seen the Wilson to Wilson connection yet. I think we're 2 weeks out from Zach Wilson, the MILF hunter, coming back into take over the reins of the offense in New York. But I like Garrett Wilson a lot. I thought it would take him maybe a couple games to get into it, but he's coming out of the gate firing, which, I mean, how awesome has it been these last few years? Especially you and I love to take our shots, especially in redraft, on some of these rookie wide receivers, and seeing so much production from these guys. I mean, Jahan Dotson, Garrett Wilson, Olave's been fine too down in New Orleans, hasn't gotten in the end zone yet, but he's been getting a ton of targets. I mean, you name it. I mean, Drake London, we didn't know what he was going to do.
Had a really nice week,
fantastic too. So I'm sure I'm missing other guys too, but no, it's
past
been
years
awesome.
Too. Jamar Chase was Justin Jefferson, to the top guys, if probably the 2 top guys, if you're talking dynasty, were guys that popped their rookie year. So I'm gonna be Jellin. I think Elijah Moore does end up taking over Garrett Wilson, and it is for exactly the reason that you said. When Zach Wilson comes back, we don't know how that Wilson to Wilson connection is going to be. We obviously saw some chemistry built with Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson, especially at the end of last season. So I think that there's definitely, once Zach Wilson does return, I can see Elijah Moore, popping, maybe not, hopefully getting back to, again, kind of the way that he was playing at the end of last season.
All right. Well, we will see what ends up happening with that. We'll have to bring that segment back a little later on. That was a good one. Maybe we'll do a Jellin or Joshin for an NCAA portion of the show coming up.
Very nice.
Always a fun segment. Speaking of fun segments, Jell, it is our Drew Lock of the Week time. So
Choo-choo.
if you are new to the show, appreciate you jumping in. And this is a segment that we do every football season weekly on our Thursday release. Got our Drew Locks of the Week. These are fantasy guys. Jill and I pick a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, whatever fantasy points they put up, standard scoring. We take for the week and we have a running total. Once you use that player, you cannot use them again and cannot pick the same player as your opponent for that position that week. Our running total so far did get the victory last week. Jill, a nice 3-point victory. However, you are still holding on to 2.4 point lead on the season. So definitely in a lot better shape than I was last year at this time. So I think you and I were both getting our ass kicked by Rick. So I got off to a rough start last year, could not climb out of it. You and I both had a rough go at it with our Drew Locks last week. I let it off last week, so you get to kick it off this week, Mr. Jill.
All right, number 1 overall pick for this week, Justin Jefferson facing the Lions. That Lions secondary is still very questionable. We saw the numbers that they gave up to AJ Brown in week 1 when Philly beat him. AJ Brown, first game as an Eagle, goes off. And then last week, Lions gave up 27 points to the Commandos, and we saw great weeks out of both Jahan Dotson and again Curtis Samuel. McLaurin had some impact plays as well. So this line secondary is still an absolute work in progress, and that's why I got to give Justin Jefferson the nod this week.
All right, I'm going to go with a quarterback that I think you can stream this week, and it is in that same game, and that's Jared Goff of the Lions. I think he's going to be fine this week. Saw Jalen Hurts have a monster game this last week. Lions have been putting up points on the season, almost got the victory over the Eagles in the first week and then ended up getting the victory this last week. And they've been putting up some solid points there. Jared Goff has been respectable on the season so far and not a name that you're able to put in every week. So I'm going to use him here in hopes that I can get some lightning in a bottle here out of Mr. Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff right now ranks as I believe he's a top 10 quarterback right now in fantasy. So he's off to a really good start. And we saw how Amon-Ra just absolutely went off last week and had a really, really strong week 1. So he's got that. Those two have a really nice connection. So I'm down with that. All right. Numero dos overall pick. I'm going to stay with that same team, and I'm going to go DeAndre Swift here as my running back. Vikings have just keep letting up points, or they let up some nice production. Obviously, Jalen Hurts this last week, it's a quarterback running, but he did have 3 rushing touchdowns. So, I can see DeAndre Swift is just off to an absolutely sweet start. Going D Swifty.
I like it. Well, since you took a wide receiver running back, I will take first shot at the tight end position here, and I'm going to go with Mr. Kyle Pitts. At Seattle. Kyle Pitts off to a horrendous start for those of you that drafted him in that 3rd, 4th round range. I definitely stayed away from him this year, but I think he has a bounce back game this week against Seattle. Seattle's given up touchdowns to the tight end position the last 2 weeks. Russell Wilson found his tight end week 1, and then he got into the end zone courtesy of Mr. Jimmy G last week against San Francisco. So I think Kyle Pitts will bounce back this week, find the end zone, and it should be a pretty solid start for tight end.
He's got a flash at some point. I mean, we're 2 weeks in and he's put up 2 duds. So about time for him. I'm going to stick with the tight end position, and I'm going to get this player who is finally looks like he's going to make his season debut. George Kittle. Who'd you say?
George
Kittle. He did practice before week 2. Just wasn't game ready. He's been, it looks like he's going to play, assuming he has no setbacks. It's risky just because he hasn't played yet this year, but I love that, Jimmy G is going to be back with him. That's when George Kittle has thrived. So I like me some GK action against the Seattle Seahawks, the Sea Turkeys, as my dad calls them.
Yeah, bold strategy. Hasn't played yet, so gambling that he won't have.
I took a gamble last week on Pittman, and it did not work out. So
off.
doing it again.
Yes. All right, I'm going to move over to the running back position and somebody that is on a team with an absolutely horrendous offense, but I think has a nice matchup this week, and that is David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. Playing the Texans, who have been an absolute sieve to the run game so far. Jonathan Taylor had a monster week 1 against them, and the Javonte Melvin combo had a nice day as well in Denver last week. David Montgomery coming off of a monster game against the Packers this last week. Didn't obviously do enough to help out get the victory in that one, but I do like the matchup here against Houston. I think the Bears, we've seen it. Justin Fields has thrown, I think, 28 passes so far on the season. So it's the run game, and it's David Montgomery's backfield right now. So I'm gonna have him locked in.
Lock him in. Wow. Yeah. Logic is correct. I like it. All right. I'm going to stack it up here. Quarterback.
Kirky.
Good old Kirk. Cousin Kirk. It's a Sunday noon game. This is the only time Cousins is any good. Again, same logic with that I said about Justin Jefferson. Lions defense passing defense has been horrendous, and it's Kirk Cousins at noon, so might as well use him here.
Who'd have thought you'd be so tuned into a Detroit Vikings?
I know. We got 4 players between us. Between those two
we're
teams.
Gonna make that 5 gel, because I'm also stacking with Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown going for the NFL record of most consecutive games with 8 catches. So hopefully he can be locked in, get another 8 catches, maybe find the end zone. But no, him and Jared Goff have been on an awesome page ever the middle of last season. I had mentioned earlier that Amon-Ra St. Brown really came on strong the second half of last year. A lot of guys were curious on what was going to happen once Hawkinson was fully healthy. You had Swift out a little bit, and Amon-Ra's like, nah, man, this is my offense. I'm the wide receiver 1 in this bitch, and I'm taking over the reins here. So he's gonna have a nice game this Sunday. So yeah, 5 out of our 8 guys are in the Minnesota Detroit game. So that'll be be a doozy.
To think that we only have to pay attention to 4 games this week. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, not great, but no, I like all these picks. I mean, I do too. I think a nice mix of guys, and yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully, like I said, put up a little bit more points than we did the last week. Really get the Drew locks going.
About time. Well, yeah. Week 1 was all right. Week 2 was rough for both of us.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for this week. We will be back with you next Wednesday, recap the weekend games. We'll let you know on our upset picks and how our Drew locks went. In the meantime, though, make sure you subscribe. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube page. Click that bell so that way you know when our episodes drop. We'll be live on Tuesday, so that way you can ask us any questions if you're in tilt mode over the weekend and Kyle Pitts doesn't end up having a big game. We're here for you. We can help you find out what you need to do to shore up your fantasy team. Joe can be found at DosGel. Make sure you subscribe. He'll be tweeting out his betting picks over the weekend. So those of you in legal gambling states can make responsible wagers. good also one. Have his nice NFL pick,
entertainment purposes only
too. Yes, NFL picks as well for you on Sunday. I can be found at DosJPEC. Give us both a follow. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on all of our listening platforms. Greatly appreciate it and will help out the show. What are those listening platforms, Mr. Joe?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Make sure to, all you have to do there is search Dead Arm Sports. YouTube page, just search Dead Arm Sports as well. Make sure to subscribe. Channel should be the first thing that pops up at the top of your search results. Subscribe there to the channel, as well as hitting that bell for alerts when we go live and when any content is posted. Best bets are going to be coming out I can guarantee you one of them's going to be taking the under in the total of the Patriots game. We're going to ride that train until she's run off the tracks. But so far, 2-0 on those picks.
I would also, I will not be tweeting out any picks, but insider listener tip for you here. I would definitely go with the under in the Chicago-Houston matchup as well.
Yeah, that might be a nice 7-3 final.
Yes. Well, we'll be back to recap that and a lot of the other games with you on Tuesday. Again, appreciate everybody out there listening. If you could tell somebody you know about the podcast, that would be wonderful and help us out, along with a written review. We will read those as well, so make sure you write those. If you got a couple minutes, short stretch in your work day, you got some time, maybe you're on the John, you can write a quick review. So that would
shout out to Wild
great.
K1000.
Yes,
John.
All right. That'll do it. Those are out, chill.
Well, I tell you what, there is no encore like Mahomes versus Herbert, like tonight's Trubisky at Brissett game. Let's go Thursday night football.